My stepdaughter destroyed my late daughter's graduation dress to help me heal. She hasn't checked what's missing from her portfolio yet. My daughter Julie died 5 years ago. Hammered driver, 2 weeks before graduation. I know exactly how many days she missed it by, because I counted every single one while holding the dress we'd picked out together. When I met Paul at a grief group 2 years later, I thought maybe I'd found someone who understood real loss. He had a 14-year-old daughter Isabel from his previous marriage, and when we got married, I welcomed them both. I had one rule. 1. Don't touch Julie's room. I've tried everything with Isabel. I pay for her private school even though it costs more than my mortgage. Weekly therapy sessions that her bio mom can't afford. I treat her exactly like my twins Josh and Jamie. But 3 years later, she still introduces me as my dad's wife at school events. Still walks out when I enter a room. The worst part is how much she looks like Julie did. Same artistic hands, same dark hair, same laugh when she thinks no one's watching. The twins see it all. They're 14 now and they remember their big sister. They watch Isabel reject every attempt I make, and Josh finally asked me why she hates me when I do everything for her. I told him she just needs time, but we both knew I was lying. 3 years is plenty of time. Isabel's cruelty has layers. She told the twins I'm not their real mom because real moms don't let their kids die. After therapy, she comes out quoting Dr. Martinez, saying I'm stunting her emotional growth with the shrine room. Paul just calls it normal teenage behavior and tells me to give her space. Everything changed when Isabel decided she needed the perfect art studio for her senior portfolio. She'd been using the dining room table, but suddenly that wasn't good enough. She started leaving supplies by Julie's door, doing homework in that hallway. The light in that back room would be perfect, she'd say, knowing exactly what she was doing. I offered to renovate the entire basement. Professional lighting, ventilation, the works. Her response was, so I get the basement while your dead kid gets the best room? Paul didn't even flinch, just suggested I think about it. The campaign intensified. Paul's mother dropping hints about inclusion. Isabel standing in that hallway like she was marking her territory. I held firm until last Saturday, when I took the twins to their cousin's party. We came home Sunday afternoon to find Julie's door ajar. My hands shook as I pushed it open. The graduation dress was gone. Her jewelry box, empty. Photos missing from her board. I found Isabel in her room, calmly incorporating torn strips of the dress into her art. Not even cut properly, just ripped apart and painted over. I'm recycling materials, she said. Like my daughter's unworn graduation dress was just supplies. The twins saw everything. Josh yelled, that's Julie's, while Paul had the audacity to tell me it was just fabric, and Isabel was making something beautiful from something sad. She'd already posted her new vintage jewelry online, claimed she donated the rest but couldn't remember where. I spent 3 days in a grief fog while the twins stayed close. Then I realized something. Isabel only cares about one thing, her art, her precious portfolio for college applications. So I asked to review it with her, acted interested, and documented every piece with photos. She told me she understood if I couldn't see true beauty since my normal taste was so awful. The next day while she was at school, I removed pieces of her portfolio, left a note, recycling materials for my own project, locked them in a safe deposit box downtown. You should have heard her scream when she found out. I stayed calm, told her I donated them but could recreate them for her, just like she could recreate Julie's dress for me. Paul lost it, said I was sabotaging her future. I reminded him this is my house from before we married, showed him bank statements, 3 years of me paying for everything while he enabled her cruelty. Told him he could leave, but Isabel's college fund stays with me since I'm the only one who contributed. The twins didn't hesitate. We're staying with mom. 2 weeks of silent warfare. They're still here but we don't speak. Then this morning, a text from an unknown number. A photo of Julie's missing senior portfolio. I have something you want. Let's trade. The number belongs to Isabel's bio mom. Added one line that made my blood run cold. We should talk about our daughters. I still don't know how I feel about it. I stared at the phone, my hands trembling. Dana had Julie's portfolio, the one thing I'd managed to save from the accident scene before they took her away. How did Isabel even find it? I'd hidden it in the attic, wrapped in plastic, behind boxes of Christmas decorations. My fingers moved on their own, typing back, what do you want? The response came instantly. To discuss our daughters. Rosewood Cafe, 1 hour. I noticed the plural. Daughters, not daughter. My stomach twisted as I set the phone down and tried to steady my breathing. The twins were in the kitchen, Josh making sandwiches while Jamie scrolled through his phone. I need to run an errand, I said, grabbing my keys from the counter. Josh looked up, noticing my shaking hands immediately. What's wrong, Mom? Before I could answer, Isabel walked in from the hallway, that familiar smirk playing at her lips. She's going to meet my real mom. The kitchen went silent. Paul appeared behind her, his face darkening. What's happening here? Isabel shrugged, picking an apple from the bowl on the counter. I gave my mom some old art stuff I found. Thought she might want it since she actually appreciates talent. You had no right, I started, but Paul cut me off. No right to what? Give her mother her own belongings? He stepped closer to Isabel protectively. It wasn't hers to give, Josh said quietly, but Paul ignored him. I didn't have time for this. Dana was waiting, and she had Julie's portfolio. I pushed past Paul toward the door, but he grabbed my arm. You're not going anywhere until you explain what's going on. I yanked free. Let go of me. As I reached the door, Isabel whispered just loud enough for me to hear. Now you know how it feels. The drive to Rosewood Cafe took 15 minutes, but it felt like hours. My mind raced through possibilities. How long had Isabel been in contact with Dana? What else had she taken from Julie's things that I hadn't noticed? Dana was already there when I arrived, sitting at a corner table with Julie's portfolio open in front of her. She was studying one of Julie's self-portraits, her expression unreadable. I hadn't seen her in person since the custody hearings when Isabel was younger. I slid into the seat across from her. That's not yours. She looked up slowly, and I saw something in her eyes I hadn't expected. Recognition. Not of me from recent years, but from somewhere else. Hello, Sarah, she said, using my maiden name. It's been a long time. My breath caught. How do you? We were in the same art program at State, before you dropped out. She turned the portfolio toward me, showing another of Julie's pieces. Your daughter was talented, like mine, before you stole her father. The cafe seemed to tilt. What are you talking about? Dana pulled out her phone, swiping to a photo. An old college picture. Me, visibly pregnant, standing next to Paul at some campus event. I remembered that day. We'd been dating for 3 months. Isabel found these in Paul's old things, Dana continued. She's smart, my daughter. Pieced together the timeline. How Paul left me when I was pregnant to be with you. How you broke up with him right after your daughter was born. How he came crawling back to me. My mouth went dry. I'd never known Paul had been with Dana when we met. He'd said they'd been broken up for months. I didn't know, I whispered. Doesn't matter now. Dana closed the portfolio. But Isabel knows. She knows her father chose your baby over her. That he saw your daughter and not her for the first months of her life. The pieces clicked into place. Isabel's specific cruelty. The way she targeted Julie's memory. Dana leaned forward. I'll return the portfolio if you do one thing. Tell Isabel the truth about why her father chose your daughter over her. Tell her what kind of woman breaks up a family. me. I didn't know about you, I repeated, but Dana was already standing. 1 hour. Text me when you've told her, and I'll leave the portfolio at the cafe counter. She paused. Oh, and Sarah? Isabel's revenge is just beginning. She's recreating what you did to me, except this time, she's destroying your daughter's memory instead of stealing her father. I sat frozen as Dana left. Through the window, I watched her get into her car and drive away. The weight of the revelation pressed down on me. Isabel hadn't just been acting out. She'd been executing a carefully planned campaign of revenge for something I didn't even know I'd done. My phone buzzed. Paul, get home, now. The drive back was a blur. I found them all in the living room. Isabel holding what looked like printed screenshots. Paul standing beside her. The twins on the couch looking confused. She stole my portfolio pieces, Isabel announced as I walked in. I have proof. She held up the papers. Security camera stills from our doorbell camera, showing me carrying her portfolio pieces to my car. Time-stamped during school hours. I already filed a police report online, she continued, her voice steady and controlled. Theft of property valued over $500. That's a felony, right, Dad? Paul's jaw was set. Return her portfolio pieces, Sarah, now, or we're going through with the charges. Mom? Jamie's voice was small. What's happening? Josh stood up. This is crazy. She destroyed Julie's dress. That was different, Paul snapped. She was making art. Your mother is committing theft. My phone started buzzing incessantly. Notification after notification. I glanced down to see my social media lighting up. Isabel had posted on TikTok a tearful video about her abusive stepmother who was trying to sabotage her college dreams. The comments were already pouring in. People I knew from work, from the twins' school, all seeing her version of events. Another notification popped up, an email from the school, the guidance counselor, concerned about Isabel's home situation and how it might affect her college applications. They wanted a meeting. I tried to call my lawyer, but the call wouldn't go through. I tried again. Then I saw Isabel's small smile. Oh, did you need Mr. Morrison? She asked innocently. I called him earlier. Apparently there was some confusion with your emergency credit card. The one you gave me for emergencies? I needed to retain him for my theft case. He said he couldn't represent both of us. Conflict of interest. The room spun. She'd used my own credit card to hire my lawyer against me. My phone buzzed. A text from Josh. Dad's packing our bags. He says we need space from you. I looked up to see Paul heading upstairs, the twins following reluctantly. Josh threw me a desperate look over his shoulder. You can't take them, I said, moving to block the stairs. Paul pulled out his phone, showing me a video. This morning, me confronting Isabel about the dress, but it was edited. The parts where she taunted me were gone. It only showed me yelling, looking unhinged. The boys aren't safe here, he said coldly. Not with you like this. They left within an hour. The twins hugged me goodbye, Jamie crying, Josh whispering that he'd text me. Isabel stood by the door, watching. After they drove away, I found she'd left me a message. Julie's dress pieces arranged on my bed, spelling out 2 words, your fault. My sister called while I was staring at the message. Sarah, I just saw the posts. Are you having another breakdown, like after Julie? No, I'm not. Maybe you should come stay with me for a while. Get some help. I hung up. My phone kept buzzing. More comments on Isabel's video. More people believing her version. I needed evidence. Something to prove what she'd done. I drove to the bank where I'd stored her portfolio pieces. The security guard watched me suspiciously as I retrieved one piece to photograph. Evidence that I hadn't destroyed them, just stored them. But as I walked back to my car, I realized how it would look. More proof of my obsession with controlling Isabel's art. When I got home, there was a locksmith van in the driveway. Paul's car was there too. I parked and ran to the door, but my key wouldn't work. They'd already changed the locks. Paul came out with the locksmith. For Isabel's safety, he said, you can get your things when you're calmer. This is my house, and you're acting erratically. If you try to enter without permission, it's breaking and entering. I still had my key. In my panic, I used it on the back door before remembering it had been changed too. The door opened. They hadn't gotten to that lock yet, but as soon as I stepped inside, I realized what I'd done. I'd just given them more ammunition, breaking into their home. Another crime to add to Isabel's list. The house was quiet. I grabbed some clothes and toiletries, my hands shaking. On the kitchen counter, I found Isabel's latest creation, a collage using pieces of Julie's dress, formed into a crown. The title card read, Victory over Grief. I took a photo, then left through the back door. As I reached my car, I saw curtains move in Isabel's window. She'd been watching. She'd wanted me to see the collage. Every move I made, she was 3 steps ahead, turning my grief into her weapon, my love for Julie into evidence of my instability. I sat in my car in the driveway of what used to be my home, watching the lights turn on in different rooms, the twins' bedroom, the kitchen where we used to have family dinners, Julie's room, where Isabel was probably planning her next attack. My phone buzzed with another text from Dana. Time's running out. Tell her the truth, or the portfolio disappears forever. But how could I tell Isabel something that would only fuel her revenge? How could I admit to being the other woman when I hadn't even known? And how could I fight back when every move I made only proved her points about my instability? The war Isabel had declared wasn't just about art or rooms or even Paul. It was about systematically destroying me using my own grief as the weapon. And so far, she was winning. The next morning, I woke in my car to see Isabel live streaming outside about feeling unsafe at home. She positioned herself perfectly so my car was visible in the background, making it look like I was stalking her. The comments flooded in immediately, people calling me dangerous, unstable, obsessed. I watched helplessly as she wiped fake tears, explaining how she'd tried so hard to bond with me, but I'd always resented her for not being Julie. My phone vibrated with texts from my book club friends. They'd seen the posts. Dana had reached out to them on Facebook, expressing concern about my mental state. She'd shared selective screenshots of our cafe conversation, making it seem like I was harassing her about the past. The narrative was building, brick by brick, and I was trapped inside it. I needed to check the doorbell footage from the night Isabel took Julie's things. Opening the app on my phone, I discovered all the videos from that weekend had been deleted from the cloud. The only remaining clips showed me taking Isabel's portfolio pieces to my car. She'd used Paul's password to access the account. Of course she had. The twins' teacher called while I was still processing this. The boys seemed distracted in class, she said. Isabel had offered to help tutor them after school since I was going through a difficult time. She was already positioning herself as their stable parental figure. The teacher's tone suggested she'd seen the social media posts too. I drove to a coffee shop with Wi-Fi, desperate to counter the narrative online. But when I logged into my accounts, I found Isabel had been busy. She'd posted clips from my grief therapy sessions, recorded through the bedroom vent. Private moments where I'd sobbed about failing Julie, about not being there to protect her. The videos were edited to make me seem unhinged, dangerous even. How long had she been recording me? Paul filed for an emergency custody hearing that afternoon. The papers were delivered to the coffee shop, the server looking at me with barely concealed pity. He was claiming I was fixated and unstable, a danger to the children. The hearing was set for 3 days away. I met Dana again that evening, this time at a park. I offered to tell Isabel everything if she'd help expose what her daughter was doing. Dana listened, then smiled coldly. immediately. She pulled out her phone, showing me text messages from Isabel bragging about her plan. My heart leaped, thinking I finally had evidence. Then Dana named her price, $5,000 to testify on my behalf. Cash. You took my life once, she said. Now you can pay to get yours back. My mother arrived the next day, having driven 6 hours after seeing the posts. She walked into the coffee shop where I was camping out, her face a mask of concern and disappointment. Sarah, honey, you need help. This obsession with that poor girl isn't healthy. Mom, she destroyed Julie's dress. She's been planning this. She sighed, the same sigh from when Julie died, and I couldn't stop crying. Maybe you should come home with me, take a break, get some therapy. Even my own mother believed Isabel's version. I was losing everyone. That night, I posted Dana's screenshots online, showing Isabel's bragging texts about her plan. But Isabel was ready. She claimed they were deepfakes, posted a ring video of me breaking into the house. The footage was edited creatively, showing me entering but not the context. My post was flagged for harassment. Hers went viral. The custody hearing arrived too fast. I'd scrambled to find character witnesses, but everyone had seen the posts. My therapist agreed to testify that grief rooms were normal, but I could see the doubt in her eyes when she reviewed Isabel's evidence. Josh called me secretly the night before the hearing. His voice was small, uncertain. Jamie believes her mom. He thinks you're sick. Dad won't let me defend you. He says you're manipulating me too. My family was fracturing along the lines Isabel had drawn. I discovered she'd been corresponding with my grief counselor from years ago, twisting my words from our sessions. The counselor was concerned about my fixation on Julie's room. Another professional Isabel had turned against me. Paul texted an ultimatum that night. Sign over half the house value or he'd pursue full custody and a restraining order. The house I'd bought before we met. The house where I'd raised Julie. I responded by filing fraud charges over the forged credit card application. If Isabel wanted war, I'd give her one. The custody hearing was a massacre. Isabel testified about feeling unsafe, living with someone who hoards death. She used my exact words from therapy, twisted into weapons. She cried on cue, a teenage girl afraid of her stepmother's obsession. My therapist testified that grief rooms were normal, but Isabel's lawyer twisted it brilliantly. Wasn't it true that I'd refused to let Isabel use the room for 3 years? That I'd chosen a dead child over a living one? That I'd stolen Isabel's artwork in retaliation? The judge seemed sympathetic until Paul's lawyer presented the break-in video and the theft of Isabel's portfolio. I watched the judge's face change. She ordered a psychological evaluation before making any custody decisions. During recess, Josh found me in the hallway. Just say sorry so we can go home, he begged, not meeting my eyes. Please, Mom. I miss home. Jamie wouldn't even look at me. Isabel shows us videos of you acting crazy. Are you sick again, Mom? That's when I decided to play Isabel's game. I created my own TikTok that afternoon, showing the destruction of Julie's dress with receipts. I had photos of the dress from before, screenshots of Isabel's posts wearing Julie's jewelry, the collage labeled Victory Over Grief. I caught Isabel alone in the courthouse bathroom. She was touching up her makeup, preparing for another performance. I started recording secretly on my phone. They'll never believe you over me, she said calmly, not even looking up. I'm the child. You're the crazy stepmother who can't let go of her dead daughter. Every move you make proves my point. My video went viral locally within hours, but the comments split down the middle. Half supported me, understanding a grieving mother's pain. The other half thought I was proving Isabel's point, that I was unstable and fixated on the past. Dana appeared at the courthouse the next day, demanding her money. When I couldn't produce it immediately, she threatened to support Isabel's version instead. That's when I realized she was playing both sides, waiting to see who would pay more. She hinted at more secrets, more ammunition she could provide to either side. The judge granted Paul temporary custody. I was allowed supervised visits pending the psychological evaluation. The words hit like physical blows. I'd lost my boys because of Isabel's campaign. The local news picked up the story. TikTok custody battle divides community. They interviewed Isabel, who cried perfectly on camera about just wanting to feel safe in her own home, about how she tried so hard to bond with me, but I'd always seen her as a replacement for Julie. My principal called that evening. Parents had been complaining about the unstable teacher at school. Isabel had tagged the school in her posts. They were putting me on administrative leave pending the outcome of the custody case. Another domino fell. I sat alone in Julie's room that night, surrounded by what was left of her things. Isabel had won every battle so far. I'd lost my husband, my sons, my job, my reputation, all because a teenage girl had decided to destroy me for something I hadn't even known I'd done. My phone lit up with a text from Josh's number, but it was Isabel. Check your email. The email contained a listing for Julie's room as a rental space. Sunny back bedroom and family home, perfect for artist studio. She was already planning to rent out my daughter's room, using my own home against me. I pawned my jewelry the next day to pay Dana. She revealed that Isabel had spent years studying my social media, learning my triggers, my weaknesses. She'd shown Dana everything, proud of her research. The manipulation went deeper than I'd imagined. The psychological evaluation appointment turned hostile when the doctor mentioned Isabel's concerned emails about my history. She'd been feeding him information for weeks, painting a picture of an unstable woman who'd never recovered from her daughter's death. Desperate, I created a fake Instagram account to message Isabel's friends. I learned she'd been bragging about breaking her for months. She'd turned it into a game, documenting my breakdown for her friends' entertainment. Jamie texted asking why I was stalking Isabel's friends online. Of course, Isabel had screenshotted everything, setting another trap that I'd walked right into. Every defensive move made me look more unstable. I decided to go nuclear. I posted Julie's story publicly, sacrificing the privacy I'd guarded for 5 years. I shared her artwork, her dreams, her final days. I wanted people to understand what Isabel had destroyed. The comments filled with other stepmothers sharing similar stories, but sympathy didn't translate to legal help. I was still losing everything while Isabel played the victim perfectly. Paul filed a restraining order using my stalking behavior as evidence. The hearing was in 2 days. When I read the filing, I recognized Isabel's writing style. She'd written it for him. That's when the truth hit me. Isabel wasn't trying to win. She was systematically destroying my entire life, piece by piece. This wasn't about Julie's room or art supplies. It was about complete annihilation. Dana revealed more that night for another payment. Isabel had learned manipulation from her, she admitted. I taught her to survive. You taught her who to target. The evaluation psychologist recommended a 72-hour hold when I appeared agitated during our session. I'd made the mistake of trying to explain Isabel's campaign. Without proof, it sounded like paranoid delusion. The hold was voluntary, but refusing would look worse at the custody hearing. Those 3 days in the hospital gave Isabel free rein. She redecorated Julie's room on Instagram, posting about healing this space and bringing light to darkness. Each post was a knife twist, and I couldn't respond. When I was released, I discovered Isabel had enrolled the twins in activities every day. Art classes, tutoring, sports. She was becoming the indispensable parent while I was labeled unstable. She'd thought of everything. My first supervisor supervised visit with the boys was agony. They were distant, formal. Isabel had poisoned them with concern for my mental health. The supervisor noted my agitation when Josh slipped me a note. She made us watch videos of you from the hospital. Jamie's scared. I finally understood. I'd been reactive, not strategic. Isabel had been controlling the narrative from day one, and I'd played into every trap. She'd studied me for years, learned my weaknesses, and executed a perfect campaign of destruction. My mother offered me her spare room, but with conditions. I had to admit I needed help and apologize to Isabel for the misunderstanding. She'd already befriended Isabel on social media, commenting supportively on her posts about healing and moving forward. The book club formally uninvited me from meetings. Isabel had been attending as Paul's support person, charming them with her artistic talents and tragic story of trying to bond with a stepmother who resented her existence. Josh called me secretly one night, whispering urgently, "Dad has a girlfriend." Isabel introduced them. "She's a counselor at the youth center. She thinks you're dangerous." Paul was already moving on while I fought for scraps of my former life. Isabel had even orchestrated his next relationship, ensuring it was with someone who'd support the narrative of my instability. I followed Isabel to a storage unit one afternoon, desperate to find evidence of what she'd taken from Julie's room. I watched her enter, saw her checking something inside, but I resisted going in. She emerged 20 minutes later and saw my car. "Go ahead," she called out. "I have cameras." Add stalking to the list. She'd kept more of Julie's things as insurance, I realized. Trophies of her victory, but entering would be another trap. More evidence of my obsession. That night, I found her college essay online. She'd written about overcoming family trauma, describing me as a mentally ill woman who chose her dead daughter over the living children who needed her. The essay was powerful, persuasive, and utterly devastating. It had been published in the school newspaper as an example of excellent writing. I screenshotted everything, but my lawyer, a public defender now since I couldn't afford private counsel, said defamation was impossible to prove. Isabel believed what she wrote. In her mind, shaped by years of planning and her mother's poison, it was all true. Fighting back meant admitting to following her, checking her social media, all the behavior that looked obsessive to outsiders. I was trapped in a web of my own defensive actions. The school newspaper story got picked up by a regional blog. When Grief Becomes Abuse, a teen story of survival. Isabel was interviewed as a brave survivor, while I became a cautionary tale about unprocessed grief. I filed a complaint with the school about the essay, walking right into another trap. Now I seemed vindictive, trying to sabotage a teenager's future because of my own mental health issues. Isabel's college acceptance letter arrived at what used to be my home. Full scholarship for overcoming adversity. Her essay about surviving my abuse had won her everything she wanted. She was being rewarded for destroying me. The truth crystallized painfully. Every defensive move had made me look worse while Isabel remained the victim. She'd learned from watching my mistakes, adapted her strategy, and played the long game perfectly. My lawyer dropped me after I insisted on fighting the restraining order. "You need therapy, not legal help," he said. "This obsession is destroying you." The final supervised visit was the breaking point. Jamie didn't come. Josh sat across from me, his face older than his 14 years. "Maybe Isabel's right about you," he said quietly. "Maybe you can't let Julie go." The supervisor made notes as I struggled not to cry. Every emotion would be documented, used against me. Isabel had won. She'd turned my own children against me, using my grief as the weapon. I stopped fighting after that, started documenting everything quietly instead, preparing for a longer game. Isabel noticed my silence immediately. It bothered her. She needed my reactions to fuel her narrative. She escalated, sending photos of herself wearing Julie's jewelry with captions like, "Since you won't need these anymore." But I didn't respond. For the first time in months, I didn't take the bait. My silence frustrated her. She started making mistakes, posted about her victory too early, revealing that she'd kept trophies from Julie's room. Legal evidence, finally. Her friends screenshotted her bragging about the psychological warfare she'd waged. Dana approached me one last time with an offer. Evidence of Isabel's 3-year planning in exchange for half the house value when I sold it. Desperation made the choice for me. I agreed. The evidence was damning. Journal entries dating back to when Isabel first met me, documenting her plans. Research on grief psychology, manipulation tactics, how to destroy someone from the inside out. She'd been proud enough to share it all with her mother, but when I showed Paul, he dismissed it. "She's just a hurt child acting out. This proves she needs help, not punishment." Even with evidence, I was losing. The system protected the minor, the victim, the one who cried on camera. I had to choose: release Isabel's full journal and destroy her future, or lose my twins forever. I stared at the journal entries Dana had given me, each page documenting Isabel's calculated destruction of my life. The handwriting was neat, methodical, with dates and observations going back 3 years. She'd studied my social media patterns, noted my triggers, even tracked my therapy appointments. The evidence was overwhelming, but Paul's dismissal echoed in my mind. That night, I made copies of everything and drove to the storage unit Isabel had visited. I parked across the street, watching the security cameras sweep back and forth. Whatever she'd hidden there could be the key to getting my boys back, but entering would confirm every accusation she'd made about my obsession. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number with a photo attached. Isabel wearing Julie's necklace at what looked like a college interview. The caption read, "Thanks for the inspiration. My essay about overcoming family trauma really impressed them." I recognized the background. The admissions office at State University, where Julie had planned to go, where I'd gone before dropping out pregnant. The cycle was repeating, but this time Isabel was winning. The next morning, I received notice that the restraining order had been approved. I couldn't go within 500 feet of my own home. The supervised visits were suspended pending further evaluation. I'd lost everything. I spent the day in my motel room, spreading out the evidence Dana had given me. Isabel's journal detailed her discovery of the old college photos, her realization about Paul leaving Dana for me. One entry stood out. "She took my father before I was born. Now I'll take everything from her, piece by piece." My lawyer called. The fraud charges I'd filed about the credit card had been dismissed. Isabel had recordings of me telling her she could use it for emergencies. Edited, of course, but convincing enough. Another trap I'd walked into. Josh texted me that night from a friend's phone. "Dad's girlfriend is moving in. Isabel picked out her room. It used to be yours." The girlfriend Isabel had handpicked. The counselor who already believed I was dangerous. My replacement, chosen by my destroyer. I drove past the house the next day, careful to stay outside the restraining order distance. Through the windows, I could see boxes being moved in, my life being erased and replaced. Isabel stood on the porch watching my car. She knew I'd come. She'd probably planned for it. That evening, I found more of Isabel's social media posts. She was giving talks at school about surviving emotional abuse. The other students praised her bravery. Teachers commented about her resilience. She'd turned my destruction into her platform. Dana called, wanting to know when I'd sell the house so she could get her payment. When I explained about the restraining order preventing me from even entering my own home, she laughed. Isabel thought of that too. She's been planning for every possibility. The next week, divorce papers arrived. survived. Paul was filing on grounds of mental cruelty and child endangerment. Isabel had helped write these too. I could tell from the phrasing. She'd researched divorce law as thoroughly as she'd researched grief psychology. I met with a new lawyer, showing him all the evidence. He reviewed it carefully, then shook his head. This shows a troubled teenager acting out. No judge will see this as criminal manipulation. If anything, it reinforces their narrative that you're paranoid. Even with proof, the system saw what Isabel wanted them to see. A grieving stepmother who'd lost touch with reality, obsessing over a clever teenager who just wanted to be accepted. The school board contacted me about my administrative leave. Parents had started a petition. Isabel had shared her story at a PTA meeting, breaking down in tears about living in fear. They were moving toward termination. I watched the video someone had posted online. Isabel's performance was flawless. She spoke about trying to honor Julie's memory while living with someone who saw her as a threat, about how art had been her only escape until I'd tried to destroy that too. She even took my portfolio pieces. Isabel sobbed on camera, like she wanted to erase me the way death erased Julie. The comments were brutal. People who'd known me for years now saw me as a monster. Isabel had rewritten reality, and everyone believed her version. Josh called one more time, his voice barely above a whisper. She's making us call her girlfriend mom. Says it's healthier than clinging to the past. Josh, you know the truth. I don't know anything anymore. Isabel showed us your journal, the one where you wrote about wishing she'd disappear. I'd never written such a thing, but I realized it didn't matter. Isabel had probably created it, matching my handwriting from years of studying my notes and lists. Another piece of manufactured evidence. The custody evaluator's report came back. I was deemed unfit, requiring extensive therapy before any visitation could resume. The house would need to be sold as part of the divorce settlement. Paul would get primary custody. Isabel had won every single battle. I started seeing a new therapist, not because the court ordered it, but because I needed someone to believe me. Dr. Chen listened without judgment as I laid out the whole story. She didn't call me paranoid or delusional. Personality disorders can manifest in teenagers, she said carefully. What you're describing sounds like calculated manipulation, but the system rarely recognizes it when the perpetrator is a minor. Finally, someone who understood. But understanding didn't change my reality. The house sold quickly. Paul and Isabel had staged it beautifully, removing all traces of Julie and me. The listing photos showed Isabel's art throughout. Even Julie's room had been transformed into a sunny, creative space. I used my share to rent a small apartment across town, far enough to respect the restraining order but close enough to hope for eventual contact with my boys. Isabel posted about the sale, calling it a fresh start for our healing family. The comments congratulated her on her strength. Someone mentioned how proud Julie would be of her resilience. The irony was suffocating. Dana got her money and disappeared. She'd played her part in her daughter's revenge and collected her payment. I wondered if she felt any guilt, but I doubted it. She'd taught Isabel well. The termination letter from the school arrived on a Tuesday. They cited conduct unbecoming and mental health concerns affecting student safety. 15 years of teaching, destroyed by a teenager's campaign. I applied for jobs in other districts, but Isabel's story had spread. One principal called me personally to explain, "We Googled you. The social media posts, the news story, we can't take that risk." My reputation was destroyed beyond repair. Isabel had thought of everything. Months passed. I caught glimpses of the boys sometimes from a distance. Josh had grown taller. Jamie had started wearing glasses. They looked happy in the photos Isabel posted. Their new mom featured prominently, always smiling, always supportive. The restraining order was renewed. Paul cited my continued obsession, as evidenced by my driving past their house. Isabel had installed cameras to catch me, knowing I couldn't resist checking on my children. I found work eventually. Data entry from home. Anonymous, isolated, exactly what Isabel had planned. She'd removed me from every aspect of my former life. On Julie's birthday, I visited her grave alone. Someone had left fresh flowers. For a moment, I hoped it was the boys, but the card was in Isabel's handwriting. From your sister who understands loss. Even here at my daughter's grave, Isabel had inserted herself. She'd won so completely that she could afford to play the grieving sister. The twins turned 15 without me. Isabel posted photos from their party. Paul's girlfriend had made a cake. Everyone looked like a perfect family. The comments praised Isabel for being such a good sister, helping them through the difficult transition. Dr. Chen helped me process the grief of losing my living children along with my dead one. We worked on acceptance, on building a life despite the destruction. But some wounds don't heal. They just scar over. I learned Isabel had gotten into her dream college with a full scholarship. Her essay about surviving family trauma had opened doors. She'd monetized my destruction, turned it into her success story. The day she left for college, she sent me one final message. A photo of her dorm room, decorated with Julie's artwork. Pieces I hadn't even known she'd taken. The caption read, "Thanks for teaching me that grief can be a weapon. I'll use these lessons well." I didn't respond. There was nothing left to say. The restraining order expired while she was away at college, but by then it didn't matter. The boys were old enough to choose, and they'd been thoroughly convinced of my instability. Paul had remarried his girlfriend. They'd moved to a new house, leaving no forwarding address. I kept working, kept surviving. Some days were harder than others. Dr. Chen called it ambiguous loss, grieving people who were still alive but lost to you. It felt like drowning in slow motion. Isabel graduated with honors. I saw the announcement online. She'd majored in psychology, focusing on family trauma and manipulation. The irony was perfect. She'd studied what she'd done to me, probably learning new techniques for future use. Years blended together. I heard updates occasionally. Josh had started college. Jamie was considering art school. They'd grown up without me, shaped by Isabel's narrative of who I was. I never remarried, never had more children. The destruction had been too complete. Isabel had taken not just my present, but my future too. Sometimes I wondered if she ever felt guilt, if she ever recognized the cruelty of what she'd done. But I knew the answer. In her mind, shaped by her mother's poison and her father's abandonment, she'd been the victim getting justice. The last time I saw her was at a conference on family trauma. She was speaking about survival and resilience. I sat in the back, watching her command the room. She was polished, professional, utterly convincing. The hardest part, she told the audience, was learning to forgive, to understand that mental illness can make people do terrible things. My stepmother wasn't evil. She was broken by grief, and that grief broke our family. The audience murmured sympathetically. Some wiped away tears. Isabel had perfected her story, refined it into something beautiful and tragic. She'd become the hero of a narrative where I was the villain. I left before she finished. There was nothing left to reclaim. She'd won completely, transformed my life into her origin story. But I survived. Despite everything, I survived. Not thriving, not healed, but breathing. Sometimes that's the only victory you get. Isabel had taught me that grief could be a weapon. She'd also taught me that sometimes the only way to win is to stop fighting and simply endure. I still have Julie's portfolio. Dana had kept her word about that at least. On quiet evenings, I look through my daughter's art, remembering who she was before Isabel turned turned her memory into ammunition. The boys are adults now. Maybe someday they'll want the truth. Maybe they'll find me and ask questions. Or maybe Isabel's version will remain their reality forever. I've made peace with not knowing. Some stories don't have satisfying endings. Sometimes the villain wins and the hero just learns to live with the scars. But living itself becomes a form of resistance. Isabel took everything except my ability to continue. And so I do, one day at a time, carrying Julie's memory and the ghost of the family I lost. It's not the life I planned, but it's the one Isabel left me with. And despite everything, I'm still here. That has to count for something.